Is this thing on? Hey guys, we're back. We took a little break last week, but we are here even though the ops didn't want us here, and by the ops I mean my Ethernet cable. That thing did not want to work. Did not want to have us streaming today, but nonetheless we are here. We have a lot of news. This has been a busy news day. We're going to be talking about Daniel Penny, who has now been acquitted, as he should have been. We're going to go through his entire story, what's happened within the court system, and his acquittal, and how BLM is responding to this guy getting off on these charges. Also, the United Healthcare CEO assassin has presumably been found. He's under arrest, and there is a mountain of evidence against this man. We're going to discuss all of that. And Jay-Z is now being brought up in a major allegation by a victim who was 13 years old at the time of the alleged assault that apparently Sean Carter, Jay-Z, and Sean Diddy Combs were both involved in, shall we say. We're going to unpack all of that on today's show. But before we do that, of course, we have Taylor in Nashville.
Hey, whoops, or a screen. Yeah, glad to be back in the saddle. I saw someone during the countdown said they predict you'd be wearing green. I don't know what's going on with that today, but they were spot on. Hey. I don't know if you posted something else or what's going on.
I don't think I did. I'm wearing green today. You were absolutely correct. I'm in my Alphaba era. Okay, for those of you who saw the Wicked video that came out this past weekend, I'm glad you guys got to check that out. And if you didn't, go see it. I do recommend Wicked. I think it's a good movie. There's a lot of debates circulating surrounding that film, so you know I had to put my 2 cents in. Now, speaking of putting my 2 cents in, we're going to talk about Daniel Penny, who has now been acquitted in this new bit of news. This is the veteran who used a chokehold on a New York City subway on Jordan Neely, who at the time was having somewhat of a mental episode, it seems. He was threatening fellow subway riders, saying he did not care if he went to prison, and basically making threats of violence towards the other members on this subway, the other citizens on this subway. Daniel Penny, a veteran, decided to jump in, put Jordan Neely into a chokehold to subdue him, to keep him from doing anything that might land him in prison and land others in harm. And Jordan Neely ended up losing his life on the other end of this chokehold. Now, this was a very controversial case. Everybody was in one camp or the other, it seems, on this one. Either you viewed Daniel Penny as a hero who decided to step in and save his fellow citizens on this subway car, or you viewed him as a racist white supremacist who was exercising his white privilege over a black passenger on a subway. And Jordan Neely didn't mean anybody any harm. You know, he was just going through a bit of an episode, and, you know, he was a bright young man and had all this to offer the world. You know, we know where we stand on this. Daniel Penny was doing the right thing. And I gotta say, he's doing a thing that I think most people wouldn't do these days. And that's stepping in to help your fellow citizens. This was a bright example of masculinity in an age where it feels like there is not much going around. And he paid the price of that. You know, to step up and try to protect people on this subway ride. He now went through a lengthy court case. He's going to deal with this for the rest of his life. There's now BLM protests on the other side of his acquittal. He is never going to live down this valiant moment in his life. But at the very least, there's been some justice in this case, and he has been acquitted. But this has been quite the battle for him, and it's going to continue being a battle for him. Now, in the wake of this judgment, we hear from Jordan Neely's father, who's now come out of the woodworks to talk about his son, his legacy, talk about this not guilty verdict. Now, mind you, Jordan Neely's father, where has he been? For years, apparently these two have not been in contact. But now that his son has lost his life in this way, he's come forward to talk about justice, to talk about how this has impacted him and his family. We are going to run the clip for you guys.
I just want to say, I miss my son. My son didn't have to go through this. I didn't have to go through this either. It hurts. Really, really hurts. What are we gonna do, people? What's gonna happen to us now? I had enough of this. The system is rigged. Come on, people. Let's do something about this.
Do what about it exactly? What exactly are you supposed to do about this? What happened was that this man's son went on this subway car, was threatening all the passengers on there, saying he didn't care if he ended up in prison. He didn't care what the end result of his actions were. What are you supposed to think if you're Daniel Penny? You're thinking somebody's going to get harmed here. You're also thinking, okay, well, in my training, I probably know a thing or two that I can do about this person to hopefully subdue him. In the questioning that happened after this incident on the F train, he said, I wasn't trying to take this guy's life. I was simply trying to hold him back so that he could not harm fellow passengers. You also had a couple other men hop into this situation after Daniel Penny had originally subdued Neely, and they also tried to help get this guy on the ground and pin him down so that he couldn't harm anybody. So multiple people had made the same judgment call in this instance, and it unfortunately led to this guy's death. But it seemed as though he was dealing with a slew of other problems outside of just mental health issues, maybe drugs, in the system, or an addiction of some sort. And I'm honestly, he did what I think a lot of guys in today's time wouldn't do. One, because they don't want to put themselves in harm's way for the sake of other people. But two, because when you make that choice, you could very well end up like Daniel Penny, where now over a year of your life is now pushed into this court case, into defending the action that was a heroic action. And it's just crazy. A lot of people say this acquittal is going to sort of fix the general culture surrounding these incidents. It's going to embolden people to, look out for their safety and help their fellow citizens. I don't know about that. You see in these cop cases, in the whole police brutality narrative that we're spinning these days, that a lot of cops now just feel like, why should I do my job? Why should I go out there and go the extra mile if it means that I could land myself in a court case like this? And I have a feeling the very same thing can be said of men who find themselves in these situations. And if you're in New York City, these situations are not few and far between. They're probably happening all the time. Why jump in if this is what's going to happen, even on with an acquittal here? I wouldn't. I got to be honest with you. I'd be sitting there just hoping for the best and hoping that the guy doesn't come up to me or doesn't bother anybody in my vicinity. Because if this is where it lands you, what good is it to be heroic anymore? And we're going to juxtapose this in just a bit with this United Healthcare CEO killer and the sort of parade that he's getting of celebration in the wake of what he's done. But I'm very glad to see that Daniel Penny has gotten some justice here, at least, if only, a small bit of justice. I'm curious, Taylor, because you're a man, right? Right? You are a man, right? Confirm that for me.
I am a man, yes. Last time I checked, yeah.
These are situations that, you kind of have to deal with sometimes in life. You hope you don't have to, but they do pop up. I'm curious how you would deal with a situation like this.
Well, the incentives now in society are very much, rigged against leaning toward intervening, because like you've pointed out, and like this case points out, if you do, the deck is kind of stacked against you. And that's, something certainly that goes into consideration. Also, just in general, intervening should be a last resort, resorting to physical violence. But at the same time, when vulnerable people around you, in front of you, are being assaulted or are under threat of violence imminently, then I do think it's incumbent on you, just as a matter of common sense and decency. As a man, you're physically capable of doing something, more so than women, more so than elderly people, more so than children around. So you are the person that is fit to confront whatever threat is there. And it is incumbent on you, just as part of masculinity, to kind of defend civilization and be that person who will stand in between whatever threat it may be and the innocent bystanders. And that should just be a matter of common sense. That should just be a matter of basic civility. And it should be something that we teach young men, to be courageous, to step up. And it should also be something that we celebrate at a social and societal level when men do step up and do answer the bell and do defend innocent bystanders from aggression on behalf of a person who's mentally unwell. And the fact that this whole case and the carriage of justice was muddled by these racial undertones, by this miscarriage and this distorted view of justice, that, if you're from a certain racial group, then you can do no wrong. Or if you're from another certain racial group, you can do no right if you're having to intervene against another racial group. And all that stuff is just silliness. This should be a matter of common sense. And I'm glad that the jury did get it right in the end. And hopefully with this W for common sense, it does represent that we're moving back toward a place in society where things like this will be viewed the proper way instead of convoluted by these newfangled ideas of justice that are informed by a lot of this, very activist left-leaning ideology that has really, we've seen emerge in a lot of different DAs and prosecutors across the country. So I'll take the W for common sense at least.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like when we think about these cases, you mentioned that a lot of these cases are sort of influenced by the racial narratives or the racial undertones of the society that exists in the background of what's happening at the time. And it makes you think, is the pendulum sort of swinging back in a little bit now that we have this acquittal on this case? Is there some common sense that's now being injected back into our societal framework? Because anybody looking at this case, in my mind, would think, this guy did the right thing. I mean, it's unfortunate that it ended in a fatality on Jordan Neely's behalf, but he stepped up and did what many other men who are on that same train, or who just many other men in general, would not have done in this time. And honestly, should probably be rewarded for having done what he did and for having stepped up. But this is the situation that he finds himself in. And I believe he had a majority female jury, which typically probably are not too sympathetic to cases like this. And still this ended in an acquittal. And it makes you think, okay, are people finally waking up and realizing that this sort of racial narrative that we've been spun is not one that we have to be beholden to? And we've seen in these really pivotal cases in the past where everything that's happening in the background with protests and racial narratives really gets to these jurors' minds, and I think comes to the forefront of the case rather than the actual facts. You saw it with O.J. Simpson. If you go through O.J. Simpson's storyline, his whole book, If I Did It, the sort of facts of the case when it comes to that horrific murder, things are pointing in a certain direction. But in the background of the O.J. Simpson case, you had the Rodney King death, the LA riots, this sort of view that we had of black men, of the institutions, of the man, of police. And I think that played a deep role in him getting off on what I believe he actually did. The Menendez case that's been coming up recently as the Netflix show of the Menendez brothers took the forefront, and people were watching that show. That was highly influenced by what happened with Rodney King. And you had these two white boys who were spinning a story of victimization within their families, and the book was thrown at them. I mean, imprisoned for life for what they did, despite what they were dealing with within their family and the sexual assault and the inner turmoil. And a lot of that had to do with racial narratives that were spun at the time. Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, you can see how in the times that we're in, you really have the question, is it possible to get a fair trial with how politicized we are, with how divided we are? And maybe this is a sign that people are waking up and thinking, okay, I don't have to let the racial narratives that lie in the background of this case influence where I go with the facts and with what is objective about what we've seen in this incident that took place on that subway train. So good for him. But on the other end of it, it seems like BLM is going to come in full force against this acquittal, and they have much to say, including this New York BLM leader saying that we need black vigilantes now. We need to come forward and create our own black vigilantes.
We need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Right.
Ooh.
I'm tired.
Oh no. How about we don't? How about we don't do that? That's such a crazy thing to say, first of all. Okay. I don't think that Jordan Neely was choked for being loud. I think he was going around threatening people. I think he was getting in the faces of people. In fact, there are videos of what Jordan Neely was doing on that subway train that you guys can go and look up. Public information, you can go see it. He was not just being loud. Just being loud on a subway is when you dress up as Spider-Man, you start, hanging from the rafters or whatever the fuck you call them, and you're talking to people. Or when people get on the subway and suddenly you're in the middle of a flash mob, or, some Broadway stars end up on the subway and they're belting out, you know, Lion King or Wicked, since that's what everybody's talking about right now. That's being loud on a subway train. What he was doing was threatening his fellow passengers and saying, I don't care if I go to prison. In fact, he seemed as though he was begging to go to prison on the other end of whatever it was he was going to do on that train. Luckily, we didn't get to find out what he was going to do on that train because of Daniel Penny. And now they're saying we need black vigilantes who are going to choke people when they attempt to oppress us. And it's just fascinating because the threshold for black oppression in this country is very, very low, according to Black Lives Matter. Simply being white is oppressive, according to many of these people. You read into critical race theory, and racialization and oppression based on racialization is woven into every single facet of our society. So what is the threshold for oppression? And the threshold that must be met before you go and choke somebody who is oppressing you? Let me know. And if they go about this strategy, as this particular BLM leader is asking them to, guarantee it's not going to end well. I don't think you'll be acquitted in your case of choking somebody because you felt as though they were oppressing you. Please let me know how that works out.
Yeah, it's the racial narratives. It's so interesting to watch how they convolute one's ability to just, again, look at issues with common sense. And it is not a common sense interpretation of what happened here to say that they're trying to choke us for being loud and that we need to, you know, visit vengeance upon all of society. We need more people to do this type of vigilante justice and harm others, because like that, it's not a sensible reaction to what transpired on that subway. And, you know, the same sort of racialization of this I saw was evident with the prosecutor who constantly referred to Penny as a white man and who also bragged about letting another black criminal off easy and not imprisoning him for a long period of time after he was burglarizing an elderly man who fell over in the course of that altercation and actually died in the process. And she did not sentence this person or prosecute him for a long prison conviction, and bragged about it as a form of leniency because of, again, racialized narratives. And the racial considerations should have no bearing on these issues whatsoever, whether you're a media pundit or especially whether you're a prosecutor. And again, thankfully, it looks like the jury didn't factor them in this particular case. But man, we need to get this ideology out of how we're responding to these events.
Yeah, it's really made me think about our legal system at large and how fragile it actually is, and how just the way the wind blowing at the time can influence you if you find yourself in the middle of one of these really hot button cases. And it puts into perspective so much. I mean, the history of our legal system, cases like this that have been really making headlines over time, and the racial narratives that influence them. The lawfare against Donald Trump is really put into perspective, which is something we've spoken about on this channel lengthfully. We've discussed this on the channel, saying, you know, how is it possible to get a fair trial when you have all of this stuff happening in the background? But alas, he's acquitted on this, and we're very happy for him. We're going to show one more BLM activist who decided to respond to this. And if you're wondering if they're going to scream and shout about this, the answer is yes. They are going to scream and shout about it. Here it is.
Because to be real, they didn't even try. Once the lesser charge was removed, they came back an hour later and said it was deadlock. Less than an hour and 20 minutes later, they said not guilty. These wonderful white people, I hope they celebrate their Christmas while the Neely family is praying and asking God for comfort. Goddamn them and goddamn America.
Okay. I mean, go off, sis, I guess. That's like, if that's your thing, if you just want to be, you know, miserable during Christmas, do your own thing. People's lives are going to continue to go on, I guess, as she stated here. And it's very interesting that, like, Neely's father is coming forward. He hasn't seen his son in several years. So he's had Christmas after Christmas without Jordan Neely being there. And now, unfortunately, finds himself in this situation where his son can't be there because he's lost his life in such a horrible way for all parties involved. involved. And you have to wonder, okay, this family that's suddenly coming out of the woodworks, what were you doing with your at-risk child? Where were you when it came to giving him resources? If somebody's acting like this out in public, and this is not his first altercation on the New York City subway even, he was very well known by a lot of subway travelers as being somebody who would cause these problems, make an uproar, get in people's faces. He'd injured people before. I mean, there's just a lengthy list of things that people had experienced at the hands of Jordan Neely. Where was your family then? Why is it that you guys were not in contact with him? Was he a danger to you? Were you a danger to him? Did you sort of play a role in him ending up this way? Because oftentimes when we look back at, people who are acting out in society in this way, who are just making victims out of other people, there's something happening at home. There's something happening in the childhood. There's a lack of development there, and you have to wonder. But no, the family comes out and comes forward once this has taken place, once they have something to gain, once they can be the face of a new movement that is backed by Black Lives Matter. And I'm sure, I won't make the accusation directly at them. A lot of them see dollar signs when something like this happens, and they think, oh, I'm going to ride the wave of this movement that exists on the other end of my son's life being taken. And that's super unfortunate. And maybe they need to look in the mirror just a little bit. And somebody else who needs to also look in the mirror is everybody who came after Daniel Penny and said that this guy's a white supremacist and he's exercised his white privilege in taking this guy's life, rather than viewing him as somebody who did something that many others weren't willing to do, but was probably necessary at the time. Instead, they're looking at this assassin, the guy who assassinated the United Healthcare CEO, and they're saying he's the hero. He's the one who's really put in the effort. He's the one that's done the right thing. And in a bit of breaking news today, it seems as though the United Healthcare CEO assassin has been arrested. And it is quite the story that we are going to get into. I don't mean to laugh, but it's just absolutely crazy that this is the day and age that we are living in. Let's read a little bit here. So the person of interest is Luigi Mangione, and he is under arrest. Now, he was arrested in Pennsylvania, and it was originally an arrest on gun charges, and I'll get into that story in just a bit. He was arrested for the assassination attempt as a person of interest of the CEO, Brian Thompson. Now, this guy got arrested at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania because what he did, allegedly, he shot and killed the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. He got out of there. He hopped on a Greyhound bus. He made it to Pennsylvania. And after that, decided to go into a McDonald's, presumably to eat. Now, many of the articles say, he was arrested eating at a McDonald's. I don't know if it was while he was ordering that he was recognized, if he decided to get the food and sit down. But he went into this McDonald's, and the reports have changed a little bit. First, they said it was a worker. Then they said it was a patron of the McDonald's. Then it went back to being a worker. But apparently somebody saw this guy and was like, he looks an awful lot like the images of that assassin that have been circulating everywhere. And mind you, these images were just masked. For those of you listening on podcasts, I'm covering my face as if I'm wearing a mask. And he was hooded as well. So I don't know if he was wearing this mask and hoodie when he was at the McDonald's, but somebody saw him and thought, that looks an awful lot like the photo that's circulating. And this person took it upon themselves to actually contact law enforcement and let them know, hey, I think the United Healthcare CEO assassin is here in the McDonald's right now. They come, they arrest him. What they find on him is a ghost gun. For those of you who are unfamiliar, it's a gun without serial numbers. It's not going to be traceable. Some people do like these 3D printed ghost guns that you can now have. And I guess they come in handy for committing a crime like this. He not only had the ghost gun, but a silencer on that gun as well. He had a manifesto on him, which explained why he decided to assassinate the United Healthcare CEO. So things are not looking good for homeboy. He kept that thing on him. He kept everything on him whilst going into the McDonald's. Now they look into this guy. He's actually 26 years old, and he seems to be a pretty bright individual. He is well educated. He is apparently a fan of Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, as he's read his book and thought that the guy was clearly very intelligent, brilliant. He was onto something. And in his manifesto, listing the reasons reasons why he'd gone and killed this United Healthcare CEO. It was grievances with our capitalist system, grievances with the medical industry, with the insurance company itself. And in lurking on his social media, some people found that he had actually had a spinal surgery, a lower lumbar fusion, which your girl knows a little something about a spinal fusion because I have one too. But it did not lead me to go and assassinate the CEO of a large healthcare company. And I had a bigger spinal fusion than Luigi here, okay? So they found all of this out about him. I don't know if the surgery has anything to do with why he's gone and killed this guy, if it was his own experience within the healthcare system. On Brian Thomason's behalf, there's been stories about insider trading and him selling off a lot of stocks within United Healthcare as he's gotten, different news about how the industry is running. So there's a number of grievances, I guess, one could have with this guy, and we've yet to figure out exactly why Luigi did this, but it seems like a little bit of anti-capitalist sentiment, wanting to sort of shake the corporate structure that be to its core. Now, I don't know if he's going to be successful in that. Oftentimes when you go out and commit a radical act like this, and especially a radically violent act, you don't go on to be the most influential person in the world. And maybe he's inspired by Ted Kaczynski, who, after his radical act, did go on to be pretty well known, have a very well-read manifesto that clearly people are still very inspired by. I don't know if this guy is going to have the same impact. And I got to say, it's really weird and it's kind of dark that in the world that we live in with the news cycle and with how just news is constantly being thrown at us, trying to pull a Ted Kaczynski in 2024 just does not have the same vibe to it. And maybe you could have done something with your elite education that could have altered the healthcare system rather than taking out a CEO that's going to remain a part of the news cycle for how long? Meanwhile, you've destroyed a family, you've taken a father from his kids, you've taken a man from his community, whether or not you think he was doing good things for the community or not, and you've now been arrested in a Pennsylvania McDonald's. So probably not as smart as Ted Kaczynski, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in terms of raw intelligence, he's probably, I don't know. The Unabomber was, I think, notoriously like genius level IQ. But this guy was apparently the valedictorian of his, prestigious school, went to UPenn and got a master's degree, was in engineering, I think computer engineering. So, clearly an intelligent guy, not intelligent enough not to go to McDonald's with a backpack carrying the ghost gun and silencer that you used to murder someone and sitting there getting arrested. But intelligent enough to, I guess, orchestrate this crime. I think you're right, though, on the read. I think that he most likely seems to be like, people are dissecting, oh, well, he follows Andrew Huberman and Joe Rogan on X, but he also follows AOC and Trevor Noah and some other Ezra Klein, New York Times left-wing columnists. So politically, I don't think he neatly fits into probably left or right wing, as a lot of people will try to jam him in there. It seems to be much more along the lines of Unabomber's kind of anti-capitalists, promoting anarchy and just trying to stick it to the system that he believes is failed by, conducting these acts of terrorism because he has come to the conclusion that there is no other viable option. But I think you're right that he does. He's more likely to be forgotten and put in the category of kooky, wacky person who just kind of flipped out and had this big, elaborate ideology that he wanted to promote, but ultimately wasted his intelligence and his agency as a civilized member of society. There's a litany of other ways you can protest grievances with the healthcare system, with capitalism, and still get attention, still do so in a valid way without resorting to violence, without victimizing an innocent man and his family, and going outside the bounds of civil society and justice. And for that reason, I think that he should be roundly condemned, although I'm sure what you're going to get into in a moment is that there's a lot of people who are celebrating this guy as a hero.
Yes, and I gotta say, I still have some questions. You mean to tell me you pull off an intricate assassination like this? And also found on him, I gotta mention, was multiple fake IDs that he had used. One fake ID that he had apparently utilized at a hostel that he was staying at before pulling off the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO. You mean to tell me you went through all that The NYPD said this is one of the most complex assassination attempts, I mean, not attempts, assassinations they've seen in quite some time, being that he was able to pull it off within the short window of time that this guy was traveling, outside a hotel, and where to, I don't remember. But he had tracked his path out. He made it out of the city where he had committed the assassination. And then you get caught in a McDonald's and you're willing to linger in a McDonald's eating food or ordering food rather than, I don't know, going to a vending machine or like going to a self-checkout at a grocery store or anything where you would have the least amount. Yeah, for real. Anything where you would have the least amount of contact with human beings and you get caught in a McDonald's. It's really not making sense to me. There are some things that are not adding up, but I mean, are we ever going to find these things out? I don't know. I don't want to jump to conspiracy, even though, you know, sometimes you just can't help it. There's something strange in this case. Now, I don't think he has any criminal record or anything like that. So we're going to unearth more about him and hear more about him. And I wonder what the specific grievances were that led him to be motivated to commit an act like this and what he was hoping would happen on the other end of this and if he had any further plans here. But yeah, people are cheering him on. They're calling him a hero. Here's a tweet here. This one from The Sopranos says, "And in this house, Luigi Mangione is a hero." End of story. And of course, I've seen people sharing this on TikTok and they're saying he did a wonderful thing. You know, there's no way to be an ethical CEO of a healthcare company. People have been sharing their United Healthcare insurance stories and how they've lost family members due to things that they believe happened within the insurance network and the just sort of vulture way that these insurance companies go about health and coverage and the protection of citizens, and that they're not super helpful when it comes to any of those things. And you know what? I understand that there are plenty of reasonable grievances within our healthcare system, and many have had really bad run-ins with insurance. I just don't know what killing the CEO of United Healthcare really accomplishes. And of course, I saw they're already looking for a new CEO. So you've kind of just taken a guy out. Maybe you've instilled a little bit of fear in some of these elitists. But what it sounds like they're going to do is just bulk up security. And that'll be an extra $1 million to make sure we feel a little bit safer and that there's no assassination attempts. And then we're going to pluck, another one from our lower ranks and put him in the CEO position. And, you know, he's going to have more leverage for the negotiation of his salary, essentially, is what you've done here. So I don't know. People are cheering this on and saying violence is the answer now, which is so interesting, these sort of revolutionary undertones that people seem to be feeling when they're seeing these violent acts, and they're really cheering it on. And I'm sad to say I think there's going to be a lot more of this in the future, of people who you would argue are well-adjusted, well-educated, just jumping to insane means as to communicate their message to people. We saw it in the 2 self-immolations that took place here in the United States, Aaron Bushnell being one of them. He was 24 years old and had also served in the U.S. military. So you would guess, a well-adjusted kid, and he goes and sets himself on fire, killing himself in the name of freeing Palestine. So we're seeing seemingly well-adjusted people go through life and experience things, be it in education or in serving our country. They're getting these radical ideas, or they're being radicalized towards a certain end. And then, you know, rather than going through what we would consider to be normal means of communicating your issues and trying to air out your grievances and hopefully make change and create a movement around them, you're self-immolating or you're assassinating a CEO. It's just really, really wild to watch happen in real time. And this guy just right in the morning, just walked up and did this. And again, I have so many questions about the time frame. How did he know that the guy was going to be exactly in that spot? I think it was a matter of seconds, the window that he had to commit this crime and to take this guy's life. Where did he gather that information? Is there more to this story? I know NYPD and other law enforcement, people who were analyzing this crime, had sort of floated around the idea that maybe the CEO had hired somebody to assassinate him and to take his life because maybe something was going to come out, or he committed a crime that he didn't want to impact him and his family, or he wanted his family to get life insurance. Those ideas and theories were floated. But Now you have this sort of cleanly packaged suspect who had the gun and the silencer and the manifesto on him at the McDonald's where he was arrested. So I don't know.
I don't know. Do you think maybe he wanted to be arrested or wanted to be caught in this way because he wanted to get his manifesto and his ideology out there, and that's
maybe
the vehicle for it?
The reason I thought that is I'm like, okay, you're somehow like this anarcho anti-capitalist individual, and you went to McDonald's. You know, you went to the Golden Arches where the sign says like 1,000 billion people served with our like $9.99 Big Mac deal that is way inflated. Like that's where the anti-capitalist guy went, and that's where his story, his sort of like valiant vigilante story ends in the McDonald's. There's something really ironic about it. There's something, I guess, poetic about it if you're looking at him in that way. And you'd think if he is intelligent enough to try to like liken himself to Ted Kaczynski and say that he's inspired by this guy and he's writing these reviews of Ted Kaczynski's manifesto and all this stuff, you'd maybe be smart enough not to go into the McDonald's. So maybe he knew what he was getting into and sort of wanted a poetic end to his story. But you'd have to bank on the fact that somebody was going to recognize you from the small, like, slitted photo that's been circulating on the internet.
Yeah, we were talking before the show. I'm like, bro, like, here's what you do. Get some blue contacts, bleach your eyebrows, bleach your hair, you get a different look going, stay out of public, out of the limelight for as long as you can, go in some dark motel room that you paid for with cash and order DoorDash and have them leave it at the door and don't talk to the person who delivers the food. Like we were like putting together how you'd be trying to get away if you're intelligent. And clearly
100%.
Somebody with this level of, education, you would likely be able to do it. So it's either like just, hubris or a false sense of confidence, narcissism on his part, or it seems to be something that was intentional. Maybe he just thought it was inevitable that he wouldn't be able to run from the authorities forever and was just kind of like, when they get me, they get me. I'm going to have my stuff and I'm ready to, not face up to what he's done, but get my moment of fame and try to, milk that for whatever it's worth. So yeah, I don't know. I think the most telling thing for me was his review that he wrote of the Unabomber's manifesto. He quoted somebody who was talking about it approvingly and said, like, peaceful protests got us absolutely nowhere. From his perspective, it's not terrorism, it's war and revolution, and violence against those who lead us to destruction is justified as self-defense. So if you're somebody who is taking in those ideas and, also somebody who doesn't act like this, it's not that difficult to put two and two together and conclude that this person was motivated by this sort of, anarchistic, anti-capitalist ideology, and this was his way of sending a message to the system. But I don't know. It is an interesting case, and it's interesting that people called Daniel Penny a vigilante for intervening on the subway, and yet he did something that was, in the interest of public safety and in the interest of restoring, order and peace. And what this person is doing, what Luigi is doing, is in the interest of promoting anarchy and violence and revolution. And that's a different kind of vigilantism. Like I think about Batman is known as a vigilante, but he's somebody who has moral authority because he doesn't kill the perpetrators of these crimes. He brings them to justice, and everything that he does is motivated by a desire to preserve order. And he has this sort of underlying moral framework that he operates within, which is, part of the common sense, common good. Whereas this other kind of vigilantism that we're seeing from Luigi Mangione is much more in the realm of like this criminal, terroristic anarchism that is just there to foment agitation and to resort to violence, to bring violence into the fold where it wasn't before, because you have just become embittered by the system and you're giving yourself over to this cynical view. And, and that's much more, it lacks the moral authority. So to see so many people kind of jumping on that bandwagon, to me, is the most concerning part of this whole story, because it's, we saw a similar energy with BLM protests, with the Palestine protests across campuses, where people are just, brazenly defending the destruction of property, murder of individuals, a literal terrorist group. just because they have grievances with the system or whatever it may be. And I think that is a very dangerous thing that we do not want normalized. And my hope is that just like we had common sense went out in the case of Daniel Penny, that we have common sense went out in the court of public opinion as it pertains to this individual, and that he is roundly condemned by those of us who consider ourselves decent members of society.
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, and we should still, like, I think this is open for analysis. I was on Megyn Kelly this morning, and she's like, gather enough information to, like, get the motive on this guy, and then we move on. We don't look into anything else, or, like, we don't look into the grievances. And I'm kind of like, well, we can still talk about it. Like, even with, when you look at, like, Ted Kaczynski and the Unabomber, his whole manifesto and the stuff that he was sort of prophesying that we would see in our current civilization, is like, okay, well, homeboy was kind of right. I mean, I don't agree with the means by which he got his message out to the world and what he did on the other end of these very valid concerns, but the concerns are valid nonetheless. And the thing is, a valid concern exists no matter what, somebody does on the other end of making that realization. Now, he decided to go the violent route, in a way that I guess he believes to be instilling order into the world. And in his review that Taylor mentioned, he said, that we forget that human beings are animals. And if animals were ever met with an overlord who was trying to, like, take over their civilization and bleed them dry of everything they have, animals would just take over and do whatever it is that they needed to do to survive, and they would overthrow the overlords. And that's what he sort of thinks is instilling order back into the world on a human level, because he thinks we're animals just like everybody else. But I'm interested to see, like, okay, you're a well-adjusted, intelligent 26-year-old person who's been moved to do something like this, and in the hopes that maybe it emboldens other people to do something. We've heard this whole eat the rich, no ethical billionaires, go after these CEOs in corporations, and it's a sentiment that's shared on both sides of the political aisle, which I find to be really interesting, although we go about it in different ways. You're seeing in this Trump administration where they sort of want to probe into these corporations, go after insider trading, sort of go through our normal means of handling these issues, and go about it that way. And on the radical left, you're seeing, like, eat the rich, the billionaires that were in that little submersible deserve to die. This CEO deserved to die. And I just wonder where we're swinging on this, because we're generally in agreement that these corporations are doing something wrong, and maybe the insurance companies are doing something wrong, and there's multiple people who are upholding these structures, and some people are saying just take care of the people who are doing it. Of course, I don't agree with that assessment, but what is the proper way going forward, and how much more of this is going to happen before the collective realization is like, okay, maybe we need to do something about this? And I guess if I'm asking that question, maybe he got what he wanted out of this. I don't know. We're going to see. Maybe we're going to hear from him in this whole process, although many are not going to listen by the very nature of what he's done. And we see this all the time in varying degrees, with this big climate activist thing that's happening right now and the Just Stop Oil people. It's like, okay, I agree we shouldn't be throwing our trash everywhere. Okay, I agree that there should be care taken when it comes to taking care of the earth, making sure we're moving towards sustainability for future generations. We may not agree on all of the science, backing these judgments that we're making, but there are definitely points where I can sit with you and we can sit at the table and go back and forth and go, yeah, there's middle ground. That's what I think we should do. But you just super glued yourself to a Starbucks counter and I'm trying to get a drink, or you just took the tires off my car and set them on fire, or you're in the middle of the freeway right now with a sign that says Just Stop Oil and this woman's trying to deliver her baby and I'm trying to get her to the hospital. It's like, okay, I hear you, right? But because of what you've done now, because you're in the street, because you've super glued yourself to the table, because you assassinated the CEO of United Healthcare, how much can I really invite you to the table to sit down and talk about this anymore? And maybe these people just decide, well, I can't have these conversations through normal means, so I'm going to jump to the most radical thing I can possibly think of and hope that somebody hears the thing that I'm screaming. But I think it's to the detriment of not only themselves, but the larger message that you're trying to share about whatever movement you're working behind or whatever end you're working towards. So that's how I feel about this guy. I mean, we'll see what happens if his brilliant manifesto gets released. But I got to say, unless he planned to get arrested in that McDonald's, you're no Ted Kaczynski. And I think Ted Kaczynski he was under the radar for so long.
Decades,
and it wasn't until his sister-in-law, I think, read the manifesto and was like, that sounds like my brother-in-law, Ted. And then tried to tell his brother, like, that sounds like Ted, does it not? And the brother's like, oh, no, I don't think it's him. She's like, no, I think your brother wrote this. And then that's how he gets caught, if I remember correctly. It was definitely no McDonald's in Pennsylvania. But here we are, guys. Now, speaking of crimes, my gosh, crime. This has become a crime podcast. We're going to talk about Jay-Z. Jay-Z has now found his way into the news, which we speculated was going to happen. And it's in the worst way possible. He's wrapped up in the P. Diddy stories. Now, there was a 13-year-old accuser who came after Sean Diddy Combs. And she alleged that at a VMA after party in which Diddy was hosting, she was raped by P. Diddy. Now, in this accusation, she had also alleged that 2 other celebrities were involved in some way, shape, or form. One, a celebrity male that had actually engaged in assaulting her alongside P. Diddy, actually before P. Diddy assaulted her. And then a celebrity B that is listed in this accusation that is yet to be revealed. A female celebrity who was in the room at the time and watched everything go down. Apparently a very recognizable third female celebrity was in the room who has yet to be announced. We don't know who that individual is. I'll take your guys' guesses in the chat down below, although we won't read them because I don't want to get sued. This is Amala allegedly Epinobi today. So yes, Jay-Z finds his name in the news in what is a civil lawsuit on behalf of this 13-year-old. Now, this is a crazy story. I'll go through just a little bit more in more detail. This 13-year-old, I guess, lied to her parents about where she was at this night, and she wanted to be at the VMAs. So she rolls over to the Radio City Music Hall. This is in New York City, where the VMAs was being hosted, and she's like trying to get into the VMAs, She can't get in. She's going up to limo drivers and trying to shoot her shot, which at 13 years old, what the hell are you doing at the VMAs? I guess it was a different time. She ends up talking to a limo driver, discussing her plan, what she's trying to do. And apparently this driver was like, hey, you know, Diddy likes young girls. I'm paraphrasing here. And you're exactly perfect for the job here. And that's how she ends up getting exactly what she's wanted here. She goes to this after party hosted by P. Diddy, and she's there with Sean Diddy Combs, Sean Carter, who we know as Jay-Z, and Celebrity B, which is this female celebrity. She is given alcohol and, you know, stuff to drink. Now, she mentions feeling woozy after having taken this drink. We don't know whether or not she was drugged or not. She was placed in a room. Sean Carter, Sean Diddy Combs, Celebrity B come into the room. Sean Carter apparently is the first person to rape this 13-year-old girl. He does what he does. Sean Diddy Combs subsequently does the same, and she details a pretty violent encounter. She is thrown up against a wall, thrown onto a bed, violated by both of these men, and then Sean Diddy Combs becomes more aggressive with her, trying to get her to do other sexual acts. Apparently, at some point during this altercation of him trying to get her to do other sexual acts, she gets up, she hits Sean Diddy Combs, she runs out of the room, and then makes her way out of this party, if that's what we want to call it. So that's what's written here, and this is a civil lawsuit. I am questioning why this is not a criminal case. I don't know the exact statute of limitations in New York City for criminal prosecution of these cases, but I believe she falls within the category of being able to criminally prosecute this allegation against these 2 men. But I'm sure they make their decisions on that maybe based off of the evidence that they have against them, how likely they feel they are going to get a winning verdict on the other end of these cases, but something to look into there. Now, Jay-Z has responded to these allegations in a statement. We will read that statement now. It says, my lawyer received a blackmail attempt called a demand letter from a lawyer named Tony Busby. And Tony Busby is constantly circulating around these P. Diddy allegations, so you will see his name quite a bit. What we had calculated was the nature of these allegations, and the public scrutiny would make me what he had calculated, was the nature of these allegations and the public scrutiny would make me want to settle. No, sir, it had the opposite effect. It made me want to expose you for the fraud you are in a very public fashion. So no, I will not give you one red penny. These allegations are so heinous in nature that I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one. Whomever would commit such a crime against a minor should be locked away. Would you not agree? These alleged victims would deserve real justice if that were the case. This lawyer, who I have done a bit of research on, seems to have a pattern of these types of theatrics. I have no idea how you have come to be such a deplorable human, Mr. Busby, but I promise you, I have seen your kind many times before. I'm more than prepared to deal with your type. You claim to be a Marine. Marines are known for their valor. You have neither honor nor dignity. My only heartbreak is for my family. My wife and I will have to sit our children down, one of whom is at the age where her friends will surely see the press and ask questions about the nature of these claims and explain the cruelty and greed of people. I mourn yet another loss of innocence. Children should not have to endure such at their young age. It is unfair to have to try to understand inexplicable degrees of malice meant to destroy families and human spirit. My heart and support goes out to true victims in the world who have to watch what their life story is dressed in costume for profitability by this ambulance chaser in a cheap suit. You have made a terrible error in judgment, thinking that all celebrities, he puts in air quotes, are the same. I'm not from your world. I'm a young man who made it out of the projects of Brooklyn. We don't play these types of games. We have a very strict codes and honor. We protect children. You seem to exploit people for personal gain. Only your network of conspiracy theorists, fake physics, will believe this idiotic claim that you have levied against me. And let's see, if not for the seriousness surrounding harm to kids, would be laughable. So he's saying, if not for the seriousness of these allegations, this would be totally laughable. Now, Jay-Z. We're going to take his statement. So he thinks this is BS. He thinks this person is going out for money. Now, interestingly enough, in this statement, he only addresses Tony Busby. He does not address the alleged 13-year-old victim. She's not 13 now, but the alleged victim who was 13 at the time. Interesting that he doesn't address her, doesn't call her a liar, doesn't really call her out directly and say that she is sort of costuming these allegations and speaking on behalf of actual victims of crime. So I noticed that immediately. What an interesting person to go after in Tony Busby rather than the woman who is bringing about these allegations against you. Now, I do not know what happened between Jay-Z and this alleged 13-year-old at the time. I do not know that Jay-Z was involved in this crime. But here are a few things that I can tell you about Jay-Z and about the company that he keeps. Sean Carter is a big fan of Sean Diddy Combs. They've spent quite a lot of time together. And if you look at Sean Diddy Combs' past, his present, the many allegations levied against him, it does seem a little bit unfathomable to think that many surrounding him did not know that this was taking place, and in particular, Sean Carter. But that is simply speculation. Now, as far as Jay-Z and his involvement with other people who seem to love predatory behavior, Jay-Z has also had a pretty close relationship with R. Kelly. And we all know what happened with R. Kelly and the many allegations levied against him and the many crimes that he committed, including having CP, including what he did to Aaliyah, whom he married when he was in his 20s and she was 15, okay? So this was widely known, widely addressed within the music industry. And at the time, Jay-Z was working quite closely with R. Kelly. And even after the many charges laid against R. Kelly, Jay-Z would work with him after that. So please explain to me how you keep such close company with men who are acting in this predatory way. That is what I really want to know. Now, it could be that birds of a feather do not flock together and he had no idea what these men were doing, or, you know, he was privy to the marriage to a 15-year-old. He was privy to his sexual exploits. He was privy to Sean Diddy Combs' sexual exploits, but he simply did not engage, you know? He just sat on the sidelines like a good little choir boy and decided he was going to do nothing. Although we do have stories that sort of point to the contrary. And here's the tricky thing with Jay-Z is you see these things that are sort of popping up and then you sort of put the numbers together, you put two and two together and you think that seems plausible. And then the person you're basing the story off comes off and says, oh no, these are just rumors. I'm going to bring up first Foxy Brown. I mean, it's alleged by many a person within the industry, including some allegations that people have put out in diss tracks, pretty prominent rappers against Jay-Z, that Jay-Z had a sexual encounter with Foxy Brown when she was a minor. Now, Foxy Brown sort of throws out these rumors and says that did not happen. But I'm just looking at the tea leaves here and thinking things are very much lining up for these things to make sense. Now, outside of Foxy Brown, we look at Beyonce. Now, when you look into Jay-Z's relationship with Beyonce, she's alleged time after time that they met when she was 18 and then did not begin dating until, like a year and a half after their meeting at 18. But in a, 2007 interview with Charlie Rose, Jay-Z said that he met Beyonce 10 years prior. 10 years prior would have been 1997. Beyonce would have been 16 years old at the time that she met Sean Carter. So how is that lining up? And it's pretty convenient now that the story that Beyonce tells is that they met when she was 18, didn't end up dating until later. That really works out as far as the criminal timeline of his involvement in her life. Now, I have no idea what the real numbers are, when they really met. With Beyonce's just, what shall I call it? Her dedication to sticking by this man. She gonna stand beside him, 10 toes down beside Jay-Z. It makes me think, was she groomed? Did she meet, a much older man when she was 16 years old who introduced her to the industry, who sort of helped her earn her stripes at a very young, impressionable age, who maybe started a sexual relationship with her, who knows when? I don't know how old she would have been at the time. This is simply speculation. And maybe that's why she is stuck beside this man. Has she maybe seen some pretty horrifying behavior on this man's behalf with his friends? Does she know the inner workings of this industry, which we're sort of figuring out now is like a mob? It's like the mafia in the music industry right now. Did she see all that? Was she participating in some of that? I don't know. And maybe that's why she is sticking beside this man through everything that he has done. We used to all think Beyonce's biggest problem with Jay-Z was that he cheated on her. And now these allegations paint a very different picture of their relationship. And I see a lot of you saying 99 problems for Jay-Z. Yeah, it's going to be 101, okay, when this is all over and said and done. Because if what this 13-year-old victim, the victim who was 13-year-old at the time, if what she's saying is true, I don't think this is going to be a one and done situation. If what she's alleging actually happened, there will be more victims. There will be more people who came across P. Diddy, of course, came across Sean Carter if he was in close involvement with this sort of criminal network that we're now coming to find he was building out, and the crimes he was perpetrating against these victims are just sort of existing in this web with many other celebrities' names being woven through it. There's going to be more. We're going to hear more. And we said this when we started covering P. Diddy. The name that I'm hearing the most after Sean Diddy Combs is Sean Carter, is Jay-Z. I mean, just look up the photos of these two together. And of course, we can't make accusations based on those photos. But you can certainly go, oh, how much did you know? What's going on? I'm listening to rap lyrics now and I'm like hearing disses that involve things that shouldn't be happening, shouldn't have happened. And now we have this allegation. So is Jay-Z on the chopping block? And if so, it's like, okay, so many people knew this was going on. So many music executives knew that this was going on. So many people at their abundant record label knew that this was going on. And many of the elites around them were also engaging in criminal activity with minors, as it's made abundantly clear in just simply looking this over. Allegedly. Are these just like patsies? Are we just getting the people who they're comfortable, like letting out and, bringing down for this? And it has maybe enough shock value for the public that you go, oh my gosh, Jay-Z, we got him. Oh my gosh, P. Diddy, we got him. Let's turn a blind eye to the fact that there's also a female celebrity B and there's celebrity, D, E, F, G, all the way down, these many accusations levied against these men. It's kind of like the Epstein problem. You get the guy and people feel so just in shock, in awe of what they've discovered. And then you forget the little black book and the flight logs and all this information about other people who knew this was going on. And I say what I'll say every time we cover these cases. If we truly knew every single person that was involved, there'd probably be like no music industry. It'd be gutted. It would be gutted, like law enforcement would be gutted, the judges, the legal system would be gutted. And I'm not saying that every single person within the music industry is a criminal who is assaulting children, but it's enough to make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and it's enough to make you think this is a network. This is a crime network. This is a mafia. This is a mob of people just working together and gaining information and blackmailing each other. And then you have to wonder, like, are these people feds? What's going on? Lot to unpack here. I first thought, like Jay-Z and Beyonce, two kind of untouchable. They're like that untouchable couple within the music industry, just like within the world at large. It seems like this is a household name that like you would just never really expect any of them going down. And they might not. This is a civil lawsuit at that. So, I mean, we'll see. I would have hoped that just criminally, in every single case that you could possibly go after these guys, if the allegations are true, criminal suit. But that's the update on Jay-Z. He's denying it with every breath within him and saying that this is just a ploy to blackmail, I guess.
Cat Williams was right. This is the year everybody's getting exposed. But yeah, that's the rabbit hole is deep indeed. And, there's something about this whole like Hollywood, famous celebrity realm. We've seen like all the, Bohemian Grove and spirit cooking. And it's like, I wonder how much of it is just when you gain access to power and fame and money and all that it corrupts you, brings out the worst in you and causes you to participate in this debauchery or degeneracy, or if because we know that there's a lot of like nepotism and gatekeeping and people who control access to money and fame and success in a lot of these industries want to continue to exert control over you. So they want to have you participate in degenerate things in order to have leverage over you in some way. It seems like there's incentive structures there it's like this vicious cycle that just breeds more and more grossness and degeneracy and corruption. And unfortunately, with lots of unnamed victims like this 13-year-old allegedly in the wayside. So it's a dark place to go and investigate, but hopefully we do get more light shown on it and more people are brought to justice, and not just the patsies and the fall guys and the people that the powers that be are comfortable putting out there in order to continue to stay lurking in the shadows.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much. And who is Celebrity B, guys? Who is the woman? Which is just, something about it is even more heinous, that like you're a woman just with a 13-year-old girl in the room and you're sitting back and watching that take place. Now, I guess this is alleged to have happened in 2000. So I'm wondering, like, who could have been the female actress around
34 now, something like that.
In 2000, because wasn't allegedly Sean Diddy Combs, didn't he date J-Lo from 1999 to 2001? Isn't that the timeline on that? I mean, I'm just asking the question. Could it have been? Wasn't she also the girlfriend who handed him a gun that he ended up using in a shooting when they were out? I don't know. I don't know who Celebrity B is. But we'll fill it in. The 13-year-old girl says this is a very recognizable female celebrity who was also in the room watching this, which again, like, if this person is lying, what an interesting story you've come up with that manages to line up with the story of several other victims involved with P. Diddy. And, what an intricate storyline to be able to lay out in detail for these people. So we'll see what happens. And I just wish these things were prosecuted criminally. But I digress. We're going to get into your super chats, guys.
Yes, indeed. And don't be having Jay-Z's lawyers knocking on her doorstep now.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Had enough of that. Allegedly. Alex Slusher was our first super chatter today. Says, hello, Amala and Taylor. Happy Monday. Great to see you back both again with the live streams this week. Excited for the holiday season?
Yes, very excited for the holiday season. I've already started watching my my Christmas movies. Holiday in Handcuffs was number 1. And then we got to move on to other ones. It's a good one. Melissa Joan Hart and Mario Lopez. Classic.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I'm ready for it.
Those are people from my era. Yeah, I told my wife today, like, we got to lock in and start watching Christmas movies, because this is like, it's early enough to where you don't feel like, oh my gosh, Christmas is like next week, it's too late. Where, you know, you feel like the stress of like having to pack in enjoying Christmas season. Yeah. But it's not so early that it's like, okay, this is too early, it doesn't even count. So you're in the sweet spot right now, y'all. Let's see, get those movies going. In. Time to watch them. But yes, glad to be back live streaming. We almost had more technical difficulties that kept us off the air today, but we were able to figure it out.
Did
mercifully. Earl Milroy says, first time catching you live, long time viewer.
Hey, thank you so much for catching us for the first time live. Appreciate that.
Well done. Kennedy says, hi, it's so good to see you guys back. I've missed your live streams. Always look forward to watching them. What are you guys doing for Christmas?
What am I doing for Christmas? I'm going to be here. I'm going to be with my 2 dogs. I don't know what I'm going to be doing for Christmas. I'm probably just going to have like a good little meal. Unfortunately, my man is in a job where for every holiday, he is out and about traveling, doing what he has to do. So it's going to be a lonely Christmas.
Oh, I'm going to be in Oklahoma with my parents and some family, but so you're welcome to join us.
Yeah,
out there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's a good time. Let's see. Tom Royce says, unrelated, but I have to give a shout out to the Wicked movie. This is an example of how to do a remake of a beloved story without ruining it by injecting unnecessary ideologies, and this box office numbers reflect it.
You know, that's facts. That's facts. I could talk about Wicked for literally like 2 days. I could talk about it for 2 days. I didn't even do a full review of Wicked, but I really liked it. There was a few things that I was not a fan of. Mostly the little sidekicks, Ariana Grande's sidekicks, which were played by, Bowen Yang. Me and my sister were talking about this. Bowen Yang is like the new Awkwafina. I'm sorry to all of y'all who really love Bowen Yang and you think he's so hilarious. He took me out of this movie on several occasions, as well as the other sidekick. I don't know what her name was. But other than that, Ariana Grande, great performance. Cynthia Erivo, great performance. The costuming, fantastic. The cinematography I thought was really cool. The movie was great. And it has a deeper message that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, which we made a video about that went out on Saturday. So you guys can check it out if you are interested in the Wicked movie.
Go peep that. Yeah, if I had any interest in musical theater or Wicked in general, like I would be all about going to see this, but it's just, I'm not the target audience for this. But I'm glad to see that there are adaptations being made in modern Hollywood that are faithful to source material and not, more concerned with woke stuff and just making the good, despite some of the weird press stuff we saw with the movie and such, despite how some people are trying to make it about that, out in the ether. Yeah.
Let the movie stand on its own. Don't let the press on the movie influence you too much. It really is a job well done. And I say this as somebody who does not like Wicked, the musical, like the staged version of the musical. Hated it. It felt like a slap in the face watching that musical. But when I saw it in this movie form, the way that they did it by expanding on it and adding plot and structuring it, way, way better.
So we can hold space for the movie.
We can hold space for Defying Gravity. We really can.
Connor says, hi, A and Tay. Love your videos and your takes. I'm a freshman in college and a first-time voter, and you guys really help me stay informed on everything going on in the world. First super chat.
That. Awesome. And a first-time super chatter. Thank you so much for that. We're glad that we're keeping you refreshed and keeping you up to date with what's going on out in the political hellscape that we're all living in.
Yeah. Super cool to hear, Connor. Thank you. Bimbo Witch says, as a mother of a little boy who will grow up to be a white man one day, I'm so relieved that the pendulum is swinging. Love your work, A&T.
It does seem that way. I don't know. Yeah, it's like, is it? We say this every few months on this show. We're like, is the pendulum swinging back? Is the tide turning? It does really feel like it now more than ever before. But there's just still a few hurdles we've got to get over. We got to get over on here.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting, Trump 2.0 is going to be an interesting era to kind of live through and see kind of how the cultural temperature changes in the next 4 years. And I'm hoping it's more toward, the people talk about the mandate that he has, but the coalition that he built was mostly just normal people who wanted common sense back. And hopefully that is what we get. I don't want all these like super political things to happen. I just kind of want things to chill out and go back to normal. So hopefully we're getting there. But how full circle is it to be like, yeah, that's something in 2020 you'd hear, people go on social media and say, well, I'm the parent of a black child and they're going to grow up and be a black man in this society. And I just don't know if I can cope with that. And now we have like, as a mother of someone who's going to be a white man, I'm worried about that. It's like, let's all just chill a little bit and just like let people grow up and be normal and not have to worry about being treated differently because of their skin color.
Yeah, please, please.
Chad Rico says, hey there, and Tay, very glad to see you guys back live. Do you have any New Year's resolutions at all? Mine is Maha, make America hot again.
I don't do New Year's resolutions. I don't know if it's something I should pick up and start doing. I don't know.
Yeah,
never done one. I think they kind of set you up to fail a little bit. I get it.
It's a good time to kind of like look ahead and take inventory and stuff. There's the newness of a new year, but also it's kind of like, if you have tough stuff to do, why aren't you doing it now? Why you got to wait till the new year?
Right, I know.
Like, just get on it. But yeah, I have some. I want to get better at golf. I want to actually, I started a channel a while back and I have made like 5 videos in like a year, and it just is not something I've been working diligently on, and I want to do better and making more content. And I don't know, couple other things like stuff. I'm starting this alpha group thing at my church, and that was a thing. So I've got a few.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm not got
a few things cooking.
Huge resolutions person. Hawaii Girl 89 says, I was thinking the same thing about why the family get the help he needed if they knew what he's been dealing with. This could have been avoided. Right.
And you have a feeling like, okay, so maybe his issues became too great for his family to deal with. And then, which is what happens in society. Like I'll say the harsh thing, like the worst thing you can bestow on a society oftentimes is an unloved child. And that's what happens is maybe he became too much for his family, or his family was not enough for him. And then you thrust this person out into the world who develops into an adult who's capable of inflicting harm on other people. And every single thing that happened to them that led to this development is just inflicted on innocent human beings who are around them. So in a large part, I'm side-eyeing you. Why are you just showing up now when it doesn't matter? And then saying that you're showing up when it matters. It's really, really disgusting.
Yeah, really, really bad look to inflict that on your child and then society, and show up after the poor raising that you did of this child manifests itself in the way of harm in others. And then you're trying to cash in on that. Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Sorry. Chicken Pork Adobo, welcome back, Mamala. Are you getting married? Did the P. Diddy investigator come back? I bet the CEO assassin is a hero of the Eat the Rich Democrats.
Yeah, for the last one, 100% he is. Maybe not all of the Eat the Rich Democrats, but quite a few of them, I would imagine, are really cheering this guy on, as we've seen on the internet. Am I getting married? No plans on getting married in the near future. And the only reason I will get married is for tax purposes and legalities. I don't know why that just sounded like a commercial.
Of questions
and then what was the other one?
Did the Diddy investigator come back?
Oh, the investigators have not come back. So maybe they were really just at the door for the reason they say they were at the door, and they were working on behalf of some celebrity client. Maybe it was Celebrity B. Who knows?
Celebrity Queen Bee? Celebrity J-Lo B?
Yeah.
Who knows? Allegedly.
Who is it? Who is
Emily
she?
M. Says, it's weird the dad said it's a rigged system when the verdict was determined by the opinions of a random jury.
Right, and a mostly female jury from what I've read. So it's like you had all the balls in your court for the most part. Shout out to women. I love y'all. I love being a woman, but sometimes we lead a little bit too much with a compassion that makes us delulu. And cases like this go the wrong way because we allow our heartstrings to be pulled on. But maybe these women allowed their heartstrings to be pulled on in a way that led to his acquittal. So shout out to the ladies on that jury.
Yeah, they understood the assignment. Celtic Blacksmith says Luigi had to be stopped. Reports showed that he also killed 3 Goombas and a Koopa Troopa that night.
Oh my
His brother was last seen going down a giant pipe.
Not the Luigi Mario jokes. Oh my gosh.
There was a thing, we talked about the spinal fusion surgery or whatever that he had, and it was like the banner of his Twitter bio. But next to that was a Pokemon that's like a mushroom Pokemon. And there's like screenshots of a bunch of his Twitter interactions with these people who are like really into psychedelics and mushrooms and stuff. So I think that may have also been, something in his little world. So how funny is it that someone named Luigi is into mushrooms?
I know. Yeah, I have a feeling he's going to be like, if I have to guess his politics, it's probably going to be just probably center, maybe even center right. Like he's probably real down with RFK. He's probably, they said he was listening to like Huberman Lab. So it makes me think center right. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think it's like probably not traditionally any of the, like definitely not conservative, but
right.
like, socially, but probably
just wants like
vibes with the Kennedys and the Rogans and the people that are kind of in that moderate space.
Yeah.
Evil Incarnate says people need to be careful. There might be a second attack by his brother Mario. Here you guys go. We
gotta get in
Mario
there.
Joke section.
I did not anticipate that actually, and my brain did not immediately go there. So I'll take it. Thank you guys for your creativity.
I mean, the jokes do write themselves.
They
sometimes.
do.
He's missing a mustache. That's a missed opportunity.
That is true.
EWB says insurance is the reason that our medical system is so incredibly messed up. Obviously, you shouldn't murder people, but insurance needs a restructure.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, I have to think, obviously, yeah, you go to the hospital to give birth and then you get your bill and it's like, we gave you a Tylenol afterwards. That'll be $400. And then the insurance pays like $396 of the $400 Tylenol you got, or you're charged $2,000 for the baby to be placed on your chest. It's just like ridiculous. And it's become a system where not only is it just like people billing whatever they feel like insurance is going to pay, but in my time working in the medical field, I used to work for a doctor before I started doing what I do now. You can see within the hospital system, within privatized health, these practitioners and these medical professionals are just like looking to do things that they know is going to be covered by insurance. And then your health is now just floating in the wind, depending on what they feel like you'll be covered for, all these different hoops that you have to jump through. And there's really vital things that are needed for patients that it's just not going to be paid for. So we can't do this. Or, in other ways, of course, insurance has helped a lot of people and it's saved a lot of lives, and it's a balancing act. And right now the balance feels off, and something needs to be done about that. I just don't know. It seems kind of like elementary too, to think like, if I really want to upend the healthcare system, I'm just going to kill this like CEO. So I'm like, was your goal to actually like change the structure of United Healthcare? Was your goal just to get your manifesto read? If your goal was just to get the manifesto read, why did you choose this particular person to send this particular message? Does he have a specific grievance with United Healthcare itself that he feels like this guy was like responsible for? I have so many questions about why somebody would choose to do it in this way.
And I'm somewhat optimistic that we'll get more answers and more information. We know a weird amount about him already, and a lot of that is largely thanks to his social media presence and his presence on Goodreads and things like that. But it is kind of weird how we know so much about this guy, but almost nothing still months and months later about like Thomas Matthew Crooks, who shot President Trump. That's still very much under wraps. The Audrey from the Covenant school shooting, we still know very little about her. I don't think that manifesto was ever like fully actually officially released. Kind of was leaked. So,
and I guess they've like decided like this is not controversial. Like this killing is not controversial, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
Weird.
I don't know, but
weird.
It is weird how we know so much.
Yeah.
Infallible N-word says that either there is some sus stuff going on here, or he is a genius who let the victory and pride get to his head and said, F this getaway plan, cause how?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, okay, you went through the ghost gun thing, you went through the fake ID thing, you managed to like get out of the city, which is probably your biggest hurdle, is that like they would shut down like the ports of the ports where you could exit out of like the particular place where you did this thing. It's just like, and then you get caught in the McDonald's. Really fascinating.
Yeah, and if you're going to get caught anyway, like why even use a silencer? Why even try to get out of the city? Like if you wanted to just make a statement and get caught, like, and why not go to a McDonald's in Manhattan if that was your intent all along? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So many questions.
So weird. Why were you eating at McDonald's? What are you doing? I don't know.
Jordan Walsh says, I never get to catch the show live. Have been a big fan since the Will and Amala days. Love y'all's perspectives. Keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad you get to catch the show live. If you've been around that long, it's been a while. It's been a while.
That's
Years.
an OG to never have caught live. So glad you're here. Derek Zimmerman says, is Mario aware of what his brother is doing? In all seriousness, how did we get to the point that a large chunk of society is cheering on an assassin?
Yeah, it's kind of strange that these ideas are being propagated in this way. And what does it mean? What does it mean it's going to like happen moving forward? And at the very least, it's just like the lack of care when somebody loses their life, especially in a way like as heinous as this. It's just kind of wild to me. And I wonder what that threshold is as a human being. Once you reach this amount of fame or this amount of status or this amount of money, your life is now insignificant in the span of like, you know, having it taken away. Very interesting.
Yeah. And I won't go too deep into it, but I think there's this very like deep underlying sort of fundamental ideological battle of worldviews. And there's this like new sort of left-wing postmodern worldview that's all about class resentment and you know, dehumanize someone if they're from a particular race or from a particular class that is deemed to be the oppressor. And then that's against the sort of traditional, more American, you know, liberal order, where it's based on equality and rights and you know, civil society and justice, and justice is blind without regard to race and all these things, and like those fundamental principles of civilization that we've come to take for granted are being threatened by this new ideology that appeals to people's sense of justice by giving them this cheap version of justice that's just about, you know, resentment. So they're okay with killing a CEO because he's an emblem of this corrupt system that's exploitative and oppressing people, and that is morally justified because of that. But that's the same sort of revolutionary ideological thinking that led to things like the French Revolution, things like Soviet Union and Maoism and things like that. And that's why it's scary, but I don't think we're quite as far along toward that type of revolution here yet.
Yeah, it makes me think, oh my gosh, I'm just like, what is actually going on here? Like, is this even what we're thinking it is? Didn't he like, didn't they like engrave on the casing of the bullet or whatever, what was it? Yeah. Deny, depose, defend, or something like that. It was something crazy or whatever. I'm just like, it's all too it's all too cookie cutter. Like, what is going on? I don't know, guys.
He's a Fed.
Could be. Maybe the next CEO of United Healthcare decided to take the guy who has the seat, take him out. He was ready. He was ready for some upward mobility at the company. I don't know.
Could be. It's so hard these days. Yeah, it's like we have more information than ever, more video evidence, all that, and
it's almost too much.
Less close to the truth, less certain about anything.
Yep, it's too much.
Okay. Earl Milroy says the fact that he kept the weapon with him makes me think he wanted to get caught, just not necessarily at that McDonald's, but eventually.
Yeah, dude. Okay, so the purpose of getting a ghost gun is that you have an untraceable firearm, so that you can commit the crime, get rid of the firearm, and then you're not going to be traced. Why would you take the ghost gun with you? And then you utilize the fake ID to get into the hostel at the place. Okay, maybe you still need the fake ID, or was it just to like get into the hostel? I would discard the fake ID and go about my business. And then it's like, if you keep the manifesto on your person, I don't know. I don't know, guys. It's really weird. And then like, okay, the McDonald's worker who thought like that's the guy that killed the United Healthcare CEO. I want to see who that person is. Like, what? Well, I would never, even if I saw the exact person who did it, I would never think to myself, you look an awful lot like I would never think to do that in my life.
No, and had they seen the full face or just the like
just the eyes?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to have really studied that to. I guess maybe if there's a guy like, does he have the same backpack and hoodie, and was he acting suspicious, and would that make you think that was him?
Yeah, was he wearing the mask at the McDonald's, or was he showing his full face? I don't know.
Yeesh. I don't know
what's going on.
It's sus. It's all so sus. Nicodemus says, deep green sweater. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Just kidding. Thanks to both of you. Amazing work and commentaries as always. Cheers.
It is beginning to look a lot like Christmas. It's beginning to feel a lot like it too. It's a little chilly over here in LA.
You said like 50.
Yeah, it's 50 degrees. Even today, it's like in the 60s, I think, right now. Hi.
Yeah, it's interesting being back where there's seasons, and it's definitely, we had a little bit of flurries. It didn't really stick, but it had a little snow this last week. But it's kind of in that weird zone. Like today was like 60, I think, almost. And then a couple nights ago, it was like, bone chilling cold. So interesting times. But someone said they saw you on Megyn Kelly, and that's how they knew about the green sweater. By the way.
Okay.
So,
Smart. Didn't even think about it.
Should have known. Austin Williams said, I somehow made it to the backstretch for shopping in not even a week of searching for gifts. I've largely winged it, though. None of the family seems to know what they want.
I haven't done a single bit of Christmas shopping. Not a single person. Really wait until that last minute, that last curtain call to do this. So it's always how I do
Except
it.
me. You got me and my wife tickets to
That's
Home Alone
true.
Symphony and concert. We went this past weekend. It was amazing. So I had a great Christmas gift.
I need to watch Home Alone.
Wait, like period? You've never seen it?
No. I've seen it many, many times.
Oh, I was about to say.
So that's my favorite Christmas movie as well.
Okay, good.
Home Alone.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Turn up the volume, but play it on your best speakers.
Yeah.
And, take in the music. Imagine that movie without its music, and you'll appreciate the music.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's a great score. That's so cool.
It's totally magical.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Oh, by the way, my wife completely finished Christmas shopping like weeks ago.
That sounds
we were
about
actually out this weekend and at she wanted to stop by a store, Target, at Marshall's or something. Everything's Christmassy in there. She's like, dang, I wish I hadn't done all my shopping already because I want to keep buying for stuff for people now that I'm in the spirit. But I'm like,
She
see,
would.
don't be so like stressed about getting it all done early and then you can't enjoy the season. But then she'd be stressed about not having it all
Exactly.
bought it all, so it's a stress one right there.
Yep.
Jeremiah says, putting a tip in the jar as Amala Upinobi is our only hope. Love you guys. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm sure you know that reference by now.
Star Wars,
right?
isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Help
Thank
me,
you very
Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. Celtic Blacksmith says, my must-watch Christmas movie trifecta every year. Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, and Scrooge. Plus Miracle on 34th Street because I'm not made of stone.
Ooh, my goodness. If I had to come up, what would my trifecta, my trilogy be? I think it'd be Home Alone, obviously. The Santa Claus, obviously, duh. And honestly, maybe Home Alone 2. Maybe Home Alone 2. Maybe it just goes that way.
I'm Home Alone 1 and 2. Like, they're like Lord of the Rings 1, 2, and 3 for me. It's just like they're equal 10 out of 10. Like I don't really know how to.
Yeah, which one is Trump in? Is he in Home Alone 1 or Home Alone 2?
He's in 2 because he's in New York at the Plaza Hotel.
When we all loved him. When we all loved him.
Yeah, I think mine would be. I'm counting Home Alone as 1, so Home Alone. I think Santa Claus makes it in there, and then I love the Muppet Christmas Carol. That's another underrated. Classic.
I've never seen the Muppet Christmas Carol.
I like. Michael Caine treats the role of Scrooge as like the most serious thing ever, but he's surrounded by Muppets the whole time, and it's
funny.
musical and it's hilarious.
Michael Caine, he would do that.
I think it's on HBO if you got that. So, drop your must-watch Christmas movies in the chat, guys.
Yes, your trifecta, your trio. I'm sure I'm not thinking of stuff. My mind just immediately goes to Home Alone and the Santa Claus.
Yeah, Charlie
just what
Brown's
it
up
do.
there for me too. My wife likes Rudolph and the claymation
Oh
ones.
yeah,
Frosty.
like Frosty the Snowman. Yeah,
Grinch, the classic Grinch.
Yeah, which one is the Island of Misfit Toys? Is that in?
Oh, we're up on the mist.
Is that Santa Claus is coming to town?
Oh,
I'm gonna look it up.
I don't know.
The Island.
You guys got us on a rabbit hole.
You guys will let me. We can keep reading. We can keep reading. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It's Rudolph. In the Island of Misfit Toys. There you go.
Makes sense.
2001. 2001. I was 1 year old.
Random Thoughts says, I feel like the only people in Hollywood who are not guilty are the celebs who randomly picked up and left the industry. They probably found out about everything and they didn't want any part in it.
The celebs that picked up and left the industry? I have to think about that. I think there's more innocent people than
Why are you
guilty
leaving,
people. Right. It's kind of like the Ellen DeGeneres, like, why'd you leave the U.S., baby girl? Because we know you love Mr. Diddy Combs. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people who are quaking in their boots right now. with everything that's going on. And I don't know if they're leaving, if they're keeping quiet, if they're leaving the country. Shall see.
Thus, Hawaii Girl 89 says, as a parent, I would take the responsibility not being there for my kids and not blame anyone else. The family should do the same for sure. Thanks to the both of you for being here and helping us.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I can understand like trying to put myself in the shoes of a parent who's going through something like this. You're going to get, as soon as this happens, you're getting call after call after call from like these activist groups. You're getting calls from lawyers. You're getting calls from people who want to make this into a movement. And then they're spinning a certain narrative to you of what happened. And then your whole view of everything is sort of tainted. And then you have this kind of like third party perspective of figuring out what happened based on social media videos and stuff like that. So I could see how you could easily be like charged into something that you should not be a part of. But also, once you knew the facts of this case, it should be pretty cut and dry, even being motivated by like this parental tie that you may or may not have to your children, which is questionable in the case of Jordan Neely's father because he was not around. But you should be able to figure out, maybe I'm on the wrong side of this.
Indeed. Clowers After Hours says we need a real life Batman.
Do we? I don't like to think about that. I think we just need to fix the things that were working before. Ay.
There's like,
Batman.
I think it's in The Dark Knight. There's the guys who dress up like Batman and they're like, what's the difference between you and me? And he goes, I'm not wearing hockey pants.
What is that from? Wait, what?
It's from The Dark Knight.
Oh,
maybe it's Rises.
I don't know if I've ever seen it.
It's one of the last two Christopher Nolan ones. But I don't know. It would look pretty pathetic if somebody, and he's like actually tried to be Batman.
Right. Yeah.
There's so many Batman remakes now. I don't need any more Batmans.
No, over it. I'm over all superheroes, to be honest. And I haven't even seen them, but I'm over it.
Yeah, we need like a superhero detox for about a decade.
Please.
Then maybe.
Please.
Evil Incarnate says, get the person that recognized him by his eye to play the next Batman, LOL.
I mean, clearly they have
recognizing somebody
sharp
qualify you
senses.
To play Batman
Sharp
as an actor.
senses, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, we'll noodle on that one. Fifi Gigantor says, White Christmas is my favorite Christmas movie, but no one else seems to remember it. Highly recommend. I'll watch it any time of year. Crosby, Kay, Clooney, and Ellen.
I've never seen that one. Ooh,
I don't think I have
maybe
either.
I have to watch
that
one. Oh, I got a shout out. It's a Wonderful Life, too. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Good one. Classic.
Wholesome.
Classic.
Wholesome. I'm like, that's one of those where it's so emotional. I'm like, I'm never like, oh, let me go watch that. But when I watch it, I'm like, oh, this is so wholesome. It just guts
you a little bit.
I just can't.
Yeah, it's a tough one. You guys can hear Wemby in the background. Yep.
Well, he'll get some attention momentarily because I think this is our last super chat. Ryan Taylor Thomas says, at least Jordan Neely got a penny to his name for super chat.
Oh, because his name is Penny.
Right.
That is an interesting joke. You know what? If humor is your coping mechanism.
we were so had such wholesome vibes going on. And you bring in something like that.
You know what? People have lots of different senses of humor. How's that? And that's our final super chat?
That is, I see a lot of just people still dropping their favorite Christmas movies.
Food for thought on that last one. And yes, I see people shouting out, It's a Wonderful Life, A Christmas Carol, Mr. Magoo's Christmas.
I saw some Harry Potters.
I think
of that as more of a Halloween movie. But they do have Christmas in Harry Potter too. So.
I feel like Harry Potter has some Christmas vibes to it.
Definitely does.
Just like the big feast they have at the table in the first movie and all that stuff. Feels pretty Christmassy. I can understand you guys. A Christmas Story, many of you are saying down below. Yep, I love A Christmas Story. That's the one that my family watches without fail every single Christmas together with the leg lamp. Gotta love it. Guys, that's the end of our show. We're going to be back tomorrow with a video of a new trend that's taking place on TikTok of women going up to their significant others and saying, baby, I don't have the money to pay the mortgage or the rent or the bills this month. Now, some of these women are in 50-50 relationships and the man's not taking the news too well. Others are in provider relationships, and their man is saying, what mortgage? You don't even know who we pay our mortgage to. Okay, so that's going to be tomorrow's topic, and that's what we'll be discussing. So keep an eye out for that. And of course, we'll be back live on Wednesday. If you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time we're live. That's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Universal Time. Alan Mackey says, A Christmas Story. How can you forget? It's very true. Gotta shout out Christmas Story for our movies to watch this month, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you disagree with anything I said in this video, do get out in the comments down below, but do so respectfully. We encourage healthy debate on this channel. And with that being said, I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!